Welcome again. Welcome to Düsseldorf and welcome to the first ever Music Tourism Forum. It's a pleasure to be here, to be back in Düsseldorf for this special event. My name is Alice Feltro. I'm the events manager at Music Cities Events. And it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this dynamic two-day event during which we'll explore a lot of topics around music tourism. We'll have presentations, panels, night activities too with concerts and tours, so it'll be very exciting. I'm really excited for that. And as you may know, this is not the first time we've come to Düsseldorf, and Music Cities Events hosted Music Tourism Convention in Cologne in 2018. And then we came here for a full day of tour where we explored all the fun and exciting activities that Düsseldorf has to offer. And it's very exciting to be back here for this event. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you find a lot of interesting insights from this event. Before starting, I just wanted to check in with you. So who of you thinks has been a music tourist in the past? Raise your hands. Okay. So those of you who did not raise their hands, I'm sure you've been a music tourist at some point in your lives, whether you've been checking out the outside of a performance hall, whether you just listened to some live music while you were having dinner. That's all part of music tourism, and I think the point of this event is really to understand what it means to be a music tourist and how a destination can really harness the power of music to increase brand awareness and really capitalize on everything that is happening in a city. So before we get started, I'd like to welcome to the stage Dr. Heike Dohl-König, Managing Director of North Rhine-Westphalia Tourismus. Heike, please join me on stage. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Alice, for the very warm welcome and introducing me here today. Yes, and a very warm welcome to all the participants in this room with the wonderful name Weltkunstzimmer. It is impossible to translate it. And of course, a welcome to everyone who is with us here online on the screens. And of course, a special welcome and thanks to the many engaged speakers and our supportive partners. As the Managing Director of the Tourism Board of North Rhine-Westphalia, I'm glad to be here. And I'm very glad to have the team of Music Cities Event and Sound Diplomacy once more here in our Federal State, here today in Düsseldorf. And that's why I want to especially mention Luke Jones and welcome Raquel Serra. And they have a perfectly curated program built up for us, for all of you, for the next 2 days. And I also want to thank, of course, our partner, the Düsseldorf Tourism Board, for hosting this renowned international network here in this beautiful city, dear Helma and dear Nora. And of course, a special thanks goes to Ole Friedrich, the Managing Director of Düsseldorf Tourism. He will join the conference, I think, in the afternoon and tomorrow again. Düsseldorf, it's not only the capital of our federal state, it's also a part of the metropolis in the heart of it, formed by Cologne, Düsseldorf, and the cities of the Ruhr area. And with 12 million inhabitants, it is one of the largest, and we say, you see some pictures and impressions behind me, metropolises in Europe. And this metropolis we promote with the brand Urbanana. You see on every print products and around the communication here to this conference. And we do this together with the tourism boards of Cologne, Ruhr, and Düsseldorf, and of course, all the partners together are host of this conference today. Welcome, dear colleagues. And when I'm looking to the program, I'm a little bit proud of the community that joins this conference here today. There are many international, well-known in your community participants, but also familiar names about the speakers and topics. And let me mention two of them especially. Thomas Wenker from Kaputt Magazine. Together with him, we realized a very special Deep Talk NRW, it's the title. It's a video editorial series on the local nightlife. And perhaps you have the chance or the opportunity to take a look. It's very exciting and officially made and a video stream. And there is Ralf Christoph from the CO Pop Festival and conference. And so you see, we have here a very special network. This is working together with us, with the touristic organizations here in these new themes around and about Urbanana. In this network, we work together since 6 years, and together we have built up completely new contents for tourism marketing, and what is perhaps even more important, we have changed the rules. It's no longer only our part, that means a part of the tourism boards to promote our destinations and make the favorite target groups come here. But it is also the part of the creative actors and people who live and work here to invite their communities and followers by themselves. And we enable them with strategic alliances and media partnerships to send strong but also credible messages to all over the world. And one of these examples in such cooperations is this conference too. The subject about what we do around our brand Urbanana we define together, they derive not so much from the well-known points of interest and the top 10s from the bucket lists, but from the things locals do on the one hand, and on the other hand, new themes from the creative sectors and industries. Nightlife, clubs, for example, I've already mentioned. And yes, of course, music belongs to this context too. And with music, we don't only mean festivals, events, and concerts, but more or less the deeper question, what makes music, the musical heritage, and the contemporary, the sound of the cities, the vibes to an experience we can share with others. And we can share outside of events and concerts or public events. We often speak as tourism managers about the challenge to build up love brands to promote our destinations. And we make very great efforts and spendings to be successful. But we should always remember John Wilde's, music was my first love, and it will be my last. So it's quite simple, make the destinations swing. But first, let's start with our program that raises the right questions, I think, to do this. How can the sound of a city improve the quality of life? What impact has music in attracting investments and developing communities? How can we, the destination marketeers, support you, the musicians and live music scenes? What role can pop music play in destination brandings? And of course, we don't start from zero, Alicia just mentioned. It was 4 years ago, unbelievable, that we hosted Sound Diplomacy for the first time in Cologne. It was a conference about music tourism, the first one in North Rhine-Westphalia. And starting from this conference, many activities grew in the Urbanana jungle. From a book about the sound of the cities to guided tours along famous places and studios, an own app we created, and you find links to all this here on the posters on the walls. So let's be successful and initializing again. We have a wide range of topics to discuss, but we also have a great chance of new opportunities, of new impulses, of new ideas. But I want you also invite to take your time, discover the city, and it is a great week here for Düsseldorf. They are hosting the European Music Awards 2 from MTV, and with a great show on Sunday, and the city is full of people working in music industries, and it's a great moment in music tourism that can be shared here just now. So don't talk only about urban experiences, make them by yourselves, make them along the side events my colleagues and the colleagues from Düsseldorf have organized for you. Share them and have a great time here in Urbanana. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Heike Doll-Körig. That was a great introduction, and I think that covered a lot about what we want to discuss over the next couple of days. And what a great occasion that we've had to be hosted as part of this exciting week that Düsseldorf is having with the MTV EMAs and all the fun activities connected to it. So thank you again for having us. And as she mentioned, we have 2 days of exciting talks and presentations. You can see here the schedule for day 1, but if you scan on the back of your badge, there is a QR code. If you scan that, you'll be able to access the full event for the 2 days, so you can also get ready for tomorrow. So today we have a panel and then 2 presentations, then we'll have a coffee break in the afternoon, a workshop, and then we'll end with the final presentation. And after that, based on the activity that you've chosen, you'll be able to either join the tour or attend the secret concert. I'll be at the concert, but I'm sure everyone will have a great time no matter what activity they've chosen. So yeah, we can get started with the first panel of the day, and I would like to call on stage our panelists: Thomas Wenker, our moderator for today, Ralf Christoph, Jana Karima-Sulzer, Michael Wenzel, and Maike Glass. Thank you.
Now it's on? Okay. Now I'm also delivering my name. I'm Thomas Wenker. I'm your host of the opening panel here today. Some short words to me. I run Kaputt magazine together with my partner Linus Volkmann. We are based in Cologne and now Düsseldorf, Frankfurt as he moved on. We produced, as already mentioned, this Deep Talk NRW series, a video editorial series, and we made also events where we brought them back into the clubs we were filming and mixed up all the protagonists from the area together during the last 2 years. I teach at several universities here in the region, Düsseldorf, Paderborn and Folkwang University of the Arts. So I would say I have also a very good perspective over the whole area of North Rhine-Westphalia, as we are exploring the musical potential here together with the 4 participants. So I cut it short with my person and want to introduce everybody on stage here with me. First on, Jana Kerima Stolze on the left side of mine. Jana lives and works as a multimedia artist and DJ producer together with her artistic and personal partner Lex Rutten in Dortmund, who is also here with us. So a warm welcome for Jana, please. On my all-out right side is Ralf Christoph, director of CO Pop Convention. Together with the mothership CO Pop Festival, they mark the main pop cultural happening in Cologne, I like to say, for now 20 years. So a warm welcome for him, please. Next to me on the left side is Michael Wenzel. Michael is together with Sven André Dreyer, the inventor and tour guide of the Sound of Düsseldorf, a tour reflecting the long music history of Düsseldorf from the Krautrock era over Kraftwerk and punk till today's active electronic music scene around the Salon des Amateurs. Please welcome him. And finally, we have here on my right side Maike Klaas. Maike works as a freelancer for the radio stations Deutschlandfunk Nova and WDR Cosmo and is the co-founder of the Fem Pop Collective, organizing concerts with female and non-binary musicians in Düsseldorf. A warm welcome for her, please. So today we're going to talk about the potential for integrating music into brand and tourism initiatives, as well as music's connection to the quality of life in the region. Therefore, I want to start with some questions to Jana. You are working with your partner Lex Rutten in Dortmund. Why so?
Why I'm working with Lex Rutten or why I'm working in Dortmund with
Why
him?
you're working in Dortmund?
Yeah, so it was kind of a coincidence. After my studies, I began a job as a curatorial assistant for Urbane Künste Ruhr. It's an institution for art and public space. And then, but after 2 years, I quit. And because it wasn't that easy to combine employee work with being a freelance artist. And so I quit and Corona started and we were stuck in Dortmund in a way, but during the last years we kind of found friends, we found kind of structures, supporting structures. We know all the institutions working there, the people who are running it, and yeah, that's why we are kind of living there. And to be honest, it's really affordable. So Dortmund, I think the price per square meter is kind of not, you cannot compare it to Düsseldorf or Cologne, so it's really, really cheap. And yeah, that's it.
So you already mentioned a little bit what would be my next question. Like, are there benefits not working like in Cologne and Düsseldorf, which are the main hubs where you obviously have better network of artists in the first place, but then you have maybe other points?
Yeah, for sure. So at some point there are not that many artists and musicians at all in the Ruhr region. So I've got the feeling that the whole region is more kind of a stopover. So you come there, you are working there, and you benefit, or you take the benefits of the region, and then you go further to Düsseldorf or Cologne, and that's why it's sometimes not that easy to stay there, but it's good to be there because there are many supporting structures. There's good funding, especially when it comes to regional funding. And if you're doing a good work, it's easy to get well known and it's easy to get kind of into that structures. And yeah, sometimes I'm a bit sad because I'm missing other artists and musicians and yeah.
But you kind of play low key also, because you also act on a national and international level as an artist. So you have, of course, enough meetings, I guess, with other artists. And what I wondered is, like, when you mention you're from Dortmund, is it like they all already know where the city is and what it's all about, or do you have the feeling you are also somebody who is like bringing the city into the world?
Yeah, I think everybody knows Dortmund because of BVB, the football soccer club. So Dortmund is really well known, but when it comes to arts and music, so nobody knows it. And when I'm telling them, yeah, I'm working here as an artist, they're, oh, what? Oh, yeah, okay. And then I tell them, wow, there's a good museum and there's a nice new club called Tresor West. It's the others. It's kind of the second place of the Berlin Tresor, and nobody knows about that. And for sure, there are nice places, but if you travel to North Rhine-Westphalia, you first choose, or would choose, Düsseldorf or Cologne, I think. So, and at the third place, maybe Essen, because of Zollverein and the history of the industry, which is really good, or which you can visit and see there and experience why to go to Dortmund. So, yeah.
A good point to move over to Ralf Christoph here on my right side for a little time travel. You moved to Cologne in 1988. So why did you choose Cologne? You're coming from the south of Germany, like me.
Well, the older ones in the room might remember there was a time before the wall came down. That means young male were forced to either go to the army or to do, instead of that, social service. And if you, the bad thing about social service was it was way longer than the army, and the good thing was you could choose where to go. And that gave people like me the opportunity, because I'm coming from deep southern province, to move to a bigger city. And I applied for a social service job in Cologne. And why did I do that? Because Berlin was not possible at that time. You were not allowed to go to Berlin to do that kind of stuff, because Berlin was still under the Allied status and not a normal city, so to say. Hamburg was too far away from me, even though I was quite interested in Hamburg. And Munich was no option because my mother is from Bavaria and I didn't want to go there. And I heard many good things about Cologne, and yeah, so it was my first option. It was just like a top-down thing: Berlin, Hamburg, Munich, Cologne.
That sounds now very practical sort, but you also have to mention that Cologne was back then like the art capital of the world, even maybe some would claim, or next to New York, and also a very important musical city. So how did that change in your perspective from coming there, like, as you said, before the wall came down, to today? Do you see like a big development? Of course there were a lot of changes, right?
Of course. Especially when people like me had no choice to go to Berlin, that automatically means they go somewhere else. You know, that was like the good thing about the federal system in that sense. To be honest, I was listening more to Düsseldorf music back then than to Cologne music, for a reason. The most interesting music in the 80s came from Düsseldorf and not from Cologne. But in Cologne there was Specs magazine, and I was a reader of that magazine. That was my Bible, or the Bible of many others in that time. And it seemed to me quite normal to go there, because if the magazine is coming from there, it must be a good city in a way as well. So that was very attractive to me.
Absolutely. I remember I come from Stuttgart myself, and Cologne and Hamburg were the two cities one was thinking about moving to at that time, because that was where the attractive cultural scene was. Since then, a lot of things changed, and we saw in Cologne a main event was when the Popcom left Cologne, which was like an important mark. Everybody thought like from now on it's going down, but right in that moment you stepped up and you started CO Pop, and I remember a lot of people were like, can that work out right after the Popcom to come up with a new event? So a lot of people maybe thought it's a crazy mission call, but now everybody is seeing like it's going on for 20 years. Do you feel like a little bit also like a role model now for you can do things like that?
That's quite a jump from 88 till when Popcom left, which was in 2003, so 15 years later. Totally different situation in Germany. We had already seen a huge drift to Berlin in the 90s of all art sectors, of all creative industries. Also the music. I mean, some of you might remember there was Viva as the competitor of MTV, which was based in Cologne. There was EMI, a major record company which is not existing anymore, as one of the 4 major companies based in Cologne. There was Specs magazine, there was Intro magazine, where you've been editor-in-chief, of course, props to him, and many, many others, Texte zur Kunst for the art sector, and I could mention many, many more. So Cologne was very lively, but then, as said, the drift to Berlin started, and everything more or less was going to Berlin. And I think the main difference back then was that the city council and institutions didn't realize what was happening. They said, "Oh, let them go, just like, who cares?" But we all know that when some major players leave the city, they also take the people with them, and also the attraction of the place. So it was kind of a ground zero situation back then, even though we had a very good scene, not like you just described it from Dortmund, because many, many artists were living there, especially in the electronic music scene, and the idea was to give them more visibility, because Popcom, which was a major music event, didn't care about them. There was like a UFO landing once a year in the city for a couple of days, and then moving again, and the local scene was never organically part of that. And the idea of CO Pop was to give that creative pool more visibility.
And do you have the feeling that what you did there is kind of a role model for others? Are others coming up to you? How did you do that? Like do you advise younger people?
How did we do that? We were bankrupt in the first year. We lost 250,000 euros and were dead, actually. If not, the city would help us with, to subsidize us with all they had in the very small pot of pop cultural support. And but nonetheless, we were totally convinced that we are doing the right thing. And the response from the people and from the scene was so huge that we couldn't stop, even though we were bankrupt as a company. And then we took it from there. A role model, I would not give you the advice to do it like we did it, because it was totally nonsense in an economic way. But 20 years later, we are still there, and we are economically very well situated, and we can do things we never dreamed of back then. So it's but as a role model, I would say no.
Okay, maybe a good point to come to Maike, and maybe she mentions you as a role model without pressuring that to happen. I mentioned that you started a Fempop collective, so maybe we can talk a little bit about how it came together and what's your main idea behind it?
Yeah, it came together in, I think, 2018. Do you hear me? I don't know. I can speak louder. Okay. And we were a bit fed up with how the music scene is so male in everywhere, on the stages, behind the stages, and we wanted to give a little change to it. Now we're talking. And so we thought about, so how can we do this? And there are things like Key Change 50/50, which do great work, but that is something you need to apply to like a bigger thing, a bigger festival. And we are like 4 friends that said, okay, let's start a concert series and do the opposite of what is, shown in Düsseldorf too often in the underground, that there are men with guitars and they do great music, but I've seen it a lot. And so we challenged ourselves to say, okay, we want to do shows just with flinter acts, and we managed to do so like for 5 years now. It's great. We have a really lovely crowd, and the feedback shows that it's needed, because there are so many people writing to us saying, hey, can we play at your place? You do great stuff. You have a environment which is great, which is open. And so, yeah, that's our goal, to keep on going and until we are not needed anymore.
And like looking at Düsseldorf in the bigger picture, do you think that the city, the musical, the cultural city is already playing its cards well? Or do you see potential for changes? What would you change in the bigger picture?
I think there is always potential. I think Düsseldorf is playing it okay-ish, but if you look at the names that are big right now from Düsseldorf and big in the past, it's also more or less men, which is okay because it's like history and how it went out, but you could position yourself in another way. I mean, there is no other city which I know of that says of itself, well, we are like a feminist music city or something, or we are a feminist city. So why not think about that and dig deeper and look what do you have, who do you have, and can't we just feature that? Because all the other things are featured quite often, and we don't forget about them if we, on top of that, think of other things. I mean, you wouldn't forget about Kraftwerk or someone like that if you would reorientate yourself and say, okay, maybe we start a campaign looking for like the flinter acts and like the broader picture. And that's not just about gender, it's also about like your background, your race, your ethnicity, like everything. That's something I would wish for from cities in music.
Maybe that's a good point to talk to you, Michael, for a second. As you are doing the Sound of Düsseldorf tours, and obviously there are a lot about male characters from the past, do you have the feeling that there are other narratives, the female narratives, which are also there, but as they were not so popular, that you are not also bringing them out in your tour? Is there more potential to revisit the history too, and not just like work on the current state?
Well, on Saturdays we talk about musical heroes, and we're talking about our musical DNA. I'm a biologist, and there's no DNA without a female part, and so is our tour. In fact, there are heroines. There have always been female heroines of music in Düsseldorf. For example, when we're talking about music in Düsseldorf, everybody thinks about Ratinger Hof. And everybody says, okay, this is where the Toten Hosen come from, or Fehlfarben. They're wrong, the Toten Hosen just played once there. But one of our heroines is, for example, the woman who started everything, who established the Ratinger Hof as a venue, as a place where you as a person, no matter what gender, can live out your inner self as a punk. As an artist, as a singer, as whatever. And this is what we tell the people. Also, we tell the story about Östro 430, Östro 430, an all-female punk band that is rooted there. We're talking about, for example, the queen of metal, Doro Pesch, who is one of, well, the greatest voices in heavy metal currently living. And also we are talking about young talents. I'm very proud that we can say that one of the bands that got a promotional award here is having is female fronted. The Bloodflowers are getting the promotional award of the city of Düsseldorf this year. And they wouldn't be so good if there wasn't this center woman, Nadia Vardi, who is very creative and is part of that very, very strong band. So there's always a female part, but it was underrepresented in the 70s when it all began. There was just female singers of a beat scene when they sung, for example, British or American songs, and when some inventive Düsseldorfers came and said, okay, let's think German music anew. Yeah, it had a technical aspect that wasn't open for female people. And so there were 4 boys called Kraftwerk. They never had a female voice there, but they were singing about female persons, for example, the model. Yeah? So the female component wasn't mostly on stage, but it was always present in the music as an ideal or whatever.
You just mentioned also the present music scene, which for me, as I'm very much interested in electronic music, is around the Salon des Amateurs, and there definitely we see it's a male and female scene. It's all there. And what's your impression of the music scene right now in general of Düsseldorf?
Oh, it's wonderful. Okay, it's recuperating, it's recovering from the pandemic, of course. It was a very hard time for every musician, especially the people who live from music. But just 3 weeks ago, just in a venue next to here, we had the Düsseldorfer Pop Day. And this is a venue when it's kind of a showroom of the scene. And you had all old bands, new bands there, and I felt it's a very vibrant scene. It's diverse. It's highly variable, and it's very interesting to listen to. And this is simply wonderful. Yeah? And still it's good to know that people can live a creative life in this city, which is very expensive.
I'm curious, do you know what's the most popular spot on your tour? Or like if there's a empiric feeling of that?
I just hate that question.
Thanks for calling me out here.
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I think everybody that comes to our tour has a special place that this person always wanted to see. For example, Ratingau, for example, Salon des Amateurs. But I think this is a very subjective, thing. But there's one place that is the most surprising, and in fact it's the underground. The underground station Heinrich Heine alley is in fact a sound installation, and nobody knows about that, even the inhabitants. And it's very surprising when you are on a Saturday and it's very quiet and you just go down the stairs and you listen to electronically deformed birds. It's so nice, and people are always surprised.
We reported about it on Kaput. Actually, it's really impressive because you walk through and it all changes, and then it's coming together with the people using the underground. The MTV Awards were mentioned before. They're gonna happen here in town. So my question is obviously to you, what kind of importance has this happening in 2022 for you?
It's kind of being united, yeah? Because again, the focus of music is here in Düsseldorf. But for me, as an inhabitant, the problem is, where should I go to? Because 2 of the greatest festivals of the year that are happening in autumn are now happening in parallel. I'm talking of Approximation Festival and the New Fall. And it has the communicative roof, that's the MTV EMA. And this is very nice, because people from foreign countries, they come here, they visit the town, they maybe get a glimpse of the local scene, which is happening every day. Music is everywhere. And finally, I must say, without MTV, there wouldn't be the Gorillas on Saturday in the Tonhalle. This is so futuristic and simply great, but what is happening after the 13th? Is there kind of sustainability that people from other countries who are avid viewers of MTV might come to Düsseldorf? Does Düsseldorf still is still Düsseldorf still a good memory for them, that they want to be here, that they want to visit this town. This is what I'm thinking about, and let's see what happens.
Which brings me back to you, Mike, because I also have the question, like with your events, do you have the feeling that you attract also people outside from Düsseldorf, from the region, and maybe also tourists who come to town and they see it in the city paper or somewhere else and think like, oh, I have to check that out while I'm here?
I think partly. I think from outside the region it works because we do have like a lot of people coming from Cologne or Münster or Essen or Dortmund that want to see acts that we showcase because they're not playing that often in their regions nor in Cologne or Düsseldorf. So this works out quite well. Like with foreign visitors, I'm not so sure because we are an underground thing by now, and you need like bigger marketing and representation to be shown, not on your Instagram. So I think that's something I wouldn't say we're working on because we're okay with how it is, but if it would change, it would be nice.
And do you see similar phases with each event? Like are people coming back and back?
Yeah, that's quite sweet. We do have like some people that are there like from day one and don't miss a show and say like, we trust you, we like how you curate your shows, we like the vibe of the shows, and those people are getting more. So I think we're on the right track. That's nice to see.
Nice. What is, by the way, the next show? Maybe we can.
Yeah, the
give
next
you a
show
little-
is on the 29th of November, and we're having Lisa Dries, which is an artist from Cologne and the Netherlands, doing soft pop electronic stuff, and Cage, which is a neo-soul artist from Cologne. It's going
Nice.
to be very lovely.
Ralf, what I wanted to ask you is, the CO Pop is so connected to Cologne, but like, just forget it for a second, would you think it's possible to make it in a different city? How important is Cologne for the CO Pop? Not only for you, also if you switch position a little bit and look at it from outside?
I still believe that our industry is a people's industry, and it's super important who is behind, who is the driving force of whether it's an event, it's a label, it's a venue, etc., etc. I mean, we have seen in Berlin so many things not gonna happen. You know, they tried so many things with having a new festival, having a big conference, this and that. It comes and goes, and now they want to try a new thing with big money investment from South by Southwest, and etc., etc. I don't believe that this is going to work because you cannot just, you know, bring it from the outside. If there's no one who lives it, it won't work. That's still my true to my heart opinion. And the question would have, I cannot answer the question because I have, maybe if I would have landed in Düsseldorf, I have tried the same, and then CO Pop would have called Dio Pop or whatever. I don't know. It's not too. I cannot clearly answer that question, especially these days. What I can say is there's many initiatives. I think CO Pop was kind of a blueprint for many other cities to invent something like CO Pop, having like a so-called showcase festival, having a conference, creating networks. Because I mean, CO Pop is so much more than just this one-off event in April. Because we were quite active in creating the club commission in Cologne, the Clubcom, which is one of 3 club commissions in Germany. We were quite active in starting Pop NRW, which is a very important program to support new talent in this federal state, and many other things. So it's like our responsibility goes far beyond than just doing this festival.
Right, you are looking a lot after young talent. You have a lot of discussions with these young artists too. So I would be interested in, like, at one point we thought like now everybody moves only to Berlin because that's the trend. But then we see different picture. We see people also, artists moving, young artists moving to a city like Cologne. And from your conversations with them, what do you think are the main points they are doing that?
Well, I think the nowadays generation is not so committed anymore to one certain place for a longer period of time. You mentioned it already that Dortmund might be something like a stopover city. I heard the same about Berlin as well, because I mean, people come and go, and it's like the same in Cologne. I think there's much more movement nowadays than it was back then. You stayed there for longer because studying took longer. You had their commitments, travel, whatever, you know, there's many reasons for that. And I think it's also a state of mind that people are much more flexible, moving between two cities or sometimes three cities, one city in Germany, maybe one outside Germany. And I think they understand that both, or maybe all the places they are staying, have benefits to them. So there's not one thing, Berlin is the best city in the world. For some reasons, Berlin is really good if you are an artist, if you are a creative person, but for many other things, it's not good, you know. It's not very effective be there and working there. Cologne might be easier for some points, Dortmund might be easier because of the living costs, you know. So yeah, I think if you are a smart person, you are just, you know, act different than I think the generation 10 or 20 years ago.
Maybe a good point to come back to you, Jana, because you were stranded in Dortmund in a way, but now you're really well connected there too. You had, I saw that last year you were part of a group show at Hardware Medienkunstverein. You have a solo show with your partner there next year. You have a residency at the Künstlerhaus Dortmund. You DJ at the Tresor West. So at one point, one could say you're really well connected now. Do you get like a lot of feedback from the local people from the area who have been there before, who give you like props for moving there, for being there?
I think yes, and but it really depends on who you are asking, because especially the people who are really living there for a long time, they shape the region because their families, they coming from a working class background, coal industry, and so for them I think bringing music and art in their life, it takes longer, and it's more like a starting point that the region is changing into a kind of a cultural region, or they tried to change it, and I'm sure it will take decades. But especially the younger people, the people who are studying, the people who are coming from outside and who are kind of active in cultural fields, they really, yeah, they say, yeah, it's nice that you're here, it's nice that you're doing that, and so I think there's lots of support. But on the other side, you feel that sometimes there's the audience which is missing in a way, because as I told that there's, or the working class, it's the biggest, I think, I don't know, maybe 70% of the inhabitants are originally from working class, and that's why I think for them there are other things more important than consuming a museum or a concert. So that's why it's kind of, it's still in this process. People are coming and going, and the whole society is changing in a way, and what they are doing, what they're working for, and what they're interested in. And one important thing is that there is no art academy, for example, and in that whole region. Folkwang University, yes, but no art academy, and that is an important thing too, I think. So.
Would you say that you identify as a Dortmund artist since you're living there for some time?
Yeah, so we are often joking, now we're becoming the Ruhris. So, because, I know I'm invited here as a Dortmund artist, and that's why, okay, I know Dortmund is a little sister, but Dortmund belongs to the North Rhine-Westphalia as well. So, I'm here, but somehow it feels kind of, okay, you're not that connected to the other cities, because there is this invisible border at some point, and it's so expensive to travel from one point to another point. And Essen, for example, it's much more closer than Dortmund to Düsseldorf and Cologne, and that makes a big difference. So.
I also asked that because you mentioned the working class, which is obviously a lot about identification at one point with each other. So also the question more open to the artists around you and the people you have daily contact with. Would you say they have a bigger identification with their area than maybe in like other bigger cities?
I don't think so. I don't think that the younger people have this kind of identification, and that's why it will stay kind of a stopover city. It's kind of a struggle because I'm thinking all the time, okay, it's nice to live here, but I'm still missing anything because at some point I feel I'm the culture which I want to consume because I'm here and I'm feeling a bit lonely as an artist in a way. And I think it's the same for many other artists and musicians. And right now we're kind of imagine or often, what is our next stop or where can we go afterwards? So even for us, it's not the place to be forever. So right now we are there and we're happy and we have our big space and we're supported. But at some point, I don't know if I really can or want to identify with that city because identification is such a strong word, I think, in a way, yeah.
I have to say personally, I was surprised how much the city has to offer when I came to the city a few times last year to film also with you and visit exhibitions there. So my question would go to you, Maike, maybe, because you work also as a freelance journalist for 2 radio stations here in the region. Do you have the feeling that the scene in North Rhine-Westphalia is seen in the bigger German picture from the people and maybe also over the border, if you could say that?
That's a good question. I think it comes back to the thing that you said earlier with like this imaginary border between the smaller cities and the lighthouses, Düsseldorf and Cologne. I think Düsseldorf and Cologne are quite okay seen, and in the end, I would say Cologne is the one that is most seen in the bigger picture, and where you also have like this travel of artists in between cities. You have artists from Berlin working with artists from Cologne and so on and so on. So this works quite well, and I think this is also seen like on an international level. But the other cities or the region in itself has, I think, potential to grow on that. So if you would ask like someone in Berlin, who's like your favorite Essen artist or Düsseldorf artist, it's hard not to say, the old things like Kraftwerk, Toten Hosen, whatever, like big names. So the contemporary scene is a bit shy maybe, or not loud enough. I don't know, because there are good people, but they need like a way to showcase themselves.
You said something nice before when you described your audience, that there are people from the different cities, they are coming together, they are coming back together. So in that sense, for your event series, it is like that the people are connected from all the different areas for North Rhine-Westphalia. Is that something also from your journalistic perspective again? Do you see that also like in the bigger picture that it's working out? Or is like what Jana just mentioned, the critical part of like the costs of traveling are too high, like cutting off a lot of the potential?
I think maybe the 49 euro ticket will change it in a way. For some people, not for all, because for some people it will be still too expensive, but that's another topic. I think right now travel in between North Rhine-Westphalia is a big thing, because you think about spending 20 euros to go by train to see a concert in another city, if the concert also costs like 20 or 30 euros. So you're like with 50, and then you have drinks and food and whatever. So it's something that is also more working in a higher class group of people that are interested in culture and music. And so you have this interconnection maybe when it comes to exhibitions, museums, whatever, theater, but not when you're down to like the underground music scenes of the cities, because the most people that consume that or go there are maybe younger, don't have that much money, and so I think this is also a big part if you think about why it's not working right now.
Of course, as we are here and talking about touristic points, to maybe a question to all of you. Do you have the feeling that the internationals and the nationals visitors who are coming specific for your events, that they also go to the other cities while they are there? Are the people who visit CU Pop like going over for Düsseldorf exhibitions, or other people from your events?
Depends on the people, of course, but actually that's the most interesting point. We talk about two different areas. If we talk about the touristic sector, I think the narrative, especially of Cologne and Düsseldorf, is very well told. Meanwhile, that's the main difference when I came here 35 years ago. Because I knew the history, but the history was not given to a broader audience. I mean, when you look at the posters here, if you look in Cologne, like with the Sound of Cologne and Stockhausen and Cannes and this and that, the story is told. It's like, it's even history. It's a modern history, but it's history. And if you talk about the younger ones moving to a city, what is the reason for that? That doesn't play any role, I think, because, I mean, you cannot buy food from history. You cannot live from history, I think that's the most interesting question for the next, let's say, 5 or 10 years is how we can make cities like Cologne and Düsseldorf, and especially the rural area, more attractive to people to come here. What is the narrative for young artists to move to that area? And that will be the most interesting question so far. In the international sense, touristic sense, I think the story is very well told and it works very well.
If nobody else on the panel wants to say something on that question, I would give the mic to the audience. Any questions from your side as we are coming to the end here? No question, at least one. I see one hand, I see two hands. I see one microphone coming.
Just a very quick question. Jana, where are you from originally? Just to compare to Dortmund for my...
It's close to Karlsruhe, but Pfalz.
Okay, so all from the south?
Yeah.
Counting from here, okay.
What they want to do, and have you considered as a region potentially twinning with other countries? For example, there are many cities in the UK of a similar size and demographic that also have thriving underground scenes but face similar challenges because they're getting drowned out by places like London, for example.
There was always the sentence, London is a country, it was a track name for that. And that's actually the complicated thing about Northern Westphalia, because the federal state has the same size like the Netherlands and more or less the same amount of inhabitants. But I work a lot with students from the Netherlands and Belgium, and some of them never been to Cologne before, even it's so close, They didn't even know that Cologne has 1 million plus inhabitants, So I think we have to start from a very, very low point of before we start talking about, hey, there's very young, cool artists hanging out here. So I think it's a complex issue because Northern Westphalia is a complex and complicated country, for good and for bad. But nonetheless, I mean, we are talking about networks and people going, exchanging from Dortmund to Düsseldorf to Essen to whatever. And there are pretty good networks established over the last 5 years, I would say so. There's a lot of movement going on. Music Women NRW, for instance, your activities, Tresor, I mean, which was like also powered by someone from Berlin, we have to say. There's a lot of movement going on, and we have just to, how we say in Germany, we have to bring it on the street, and therefore we need also initiatives like here the touristic sector to tell the story. So we in Cologne, we work very close together with the Cologne Tourism Office. They now have understood that the people they want to attract to bring to the city, our product is the perfect one to attract people to come over. And I think that's what we learned. If you want to talk to a young generation or to young people, you have to speak a completely different language. And I think this is a learning process right now.
And I think it's about finding new narratives in a way too, because you cannot tell the same stories like 30 years ago. So especially with this industrial shaped area, so yeah, you really have to find the new stories and the new reasons to come to that place and new people to shape that regions. Yeah, it's a good question. So sometimes yes, because we're really working with multimedia and visual things and digital things, and at some point it's really hard to describe what we are doing, especially for older people or people who are not that who don't have that connection to arts or especially contemporary art. So for sure, it's kind of a teaching process all the time, and it's interesting, and it's completely different to doing or to produce an artwork for Cologne or for a special place in Dortmund, especially when it comes to kind of how you speak about what you're doing and how you're kind of, in German there's this nice word Kunstvermittlung. I think there's a missing thing in English for that, because vermitteln is such a good word for it. It's kind of not teaching, but it's telling about what you're doing in a way. And for sure, I think there is something what stays or what will stay, but I don't know how long. And yeah, it's. Yeah, because they tried it since so long time to establish art in that region, and every year it looks like, okay, it's from new, and that's why I'm okay, we will see. I try my best.
I see two more hands. Do we have the time for those? Yeah. Okay.
I got the microphone.
Can we,
Thanks. I've got a question to Maike and Ralf. Both of you are working very intensely to showcase female artists. In the case of the CO Pop Convention and the CO Pop Festival, especially people of color, other marginalized groups. Question A: you showcasing women and others that are not seen so often on stages, does that attract artists to your cities? Female artists, people of color artists, A? And B, do you see potential if the city or the tourism agencies would strengthen that to attract other kinds of visitors? Say, not the pop nerd going to Cologne to learn about Ken or learn about Kraftwerk, the mostly male pop nerd, but young urban females, people of color that get interested in the city because the city positions itself as a city interesting for female music, music of all kinds of sorts.
Okay, short answer to B, I think yes, of course, definitely. If you would position yourself in that way, it would attract people because they would know, okay, this is a city that's going to this vibe and that's going to this music scene. And for example, Cologne has like a good starting point with the big LGBTQI community, which they showcase also a lot. So it would be possible. And to I don't know if like Flinter artists move to Düsseldorf because we do this thing. I don't know, but I know that a lot of artists talk to us and say, we want to come to your show and play there because we think it's good, and it's also like a good starting point to get seen because we have like our Instagram and our social media, and a lot of artists that were with us, like for example Mia Morgan. We had like the first Mia Morgan show with her headlining, and now she's there, and it's not like our work that she's there, but I think people that look for female artists may look at what we do, and so it works.
Yeah, I would even go a step further. Maybe Flinter artists or LGBTQ plus artists do not come because of, but they will leave because of. If you're not, I mean, pop culture and the events of pop culture are the echo chamber or the mirror of our society. And you cannot, you cannot reject those pulls, I mean, I'm totally sure that the festivals or events who still keep on going with male lineups or with male topics, etc., or toxic events of all kinds will not survive sooner or later. And if you are not reacting on that, because nowadays generation is super sensitive about, are you just talking bullshit to them or are you doing it for real, They are really, really sensitive. I mean, we know because all through social media, etc., etc. So you have to be totally aware of that. You are under permanent observation, so to say, which is quite positive. You cannot say, "Yeah, I'm doing a gender balanced lineup" if you don't do it. And you cannot say, "Oh, yeah, we just try to be more diverse" if you don't do it. There must always be a proof of concept, and because if you don't do it, people go somewhere else. That's the point.
I think we had one more question there next to the camera. Can we get?
Yeah.
Oh, there's okay.
My question was a bit tied to also the story of Ralph about how the beginning that you were going sort of bankrupt the first year and that you managed to get then funding from the government, or also the story of Jana that it's sometimes difficult to establish, so to say, Dortmund as also a city of culture, and I think maybe a reason for it sometimes is also funding. And I have the impression that so in Germany the government does support a lot culture, and there is a lot of funding coming from there. And my question is, from the perspective of collectives or everything that's more like underground culture and underground music, what is the perception of also getting funding from maybe companies that are more corporate about entertainment? So is there an impression that everything that is sort of corporate entertainment is in a way bad or not as genuine as something that is more underground or more collective based?
It's always, in my opinion, it is what you make out of it, how you define it. That's the good thing about. I mean, when we started doing what we are doing, there was no funds for that kind of arts and culture. The narrative was always, hey, you're doing pop culture, you're making enough money. That was the old narrative of the old music industry narrative. When pop culture was for them the same as mainstream culture, which is not. Pop culture is something different than mainstream culture. And if you look at the funding situations now in nearly every federal state, you have funds for pop culture or for non-mainstream culture, which coming from the music sector as well. Of course, we still have like high culture and pop culture. It's still a huge gap, but compared to 10 or 20 years ago, there is something, at least, even from the federal government. And I mean, politicians, you need to tell them what they have to do, It's like, it's not coming, they are not working intrinsic, They cannot see what is good and what is bad, sometimes. And this is a long way to go. It's a kind of a lobbying the good things to those who make decisions at the end of the day. And I think we quite came a long way, in a good way, compared to where we're coming from, even from the national government. But this is we are not there yet, And still, though, it's super unsafe. We have to fight for our funds because we are not a museum, we are not an opera, which gets their money constantly, year by year, without having a narrative at the end of the day. So it's a constant fight, so to say. But I think things changed a lot when it comes to what is pop culture, what is worth to fund.
Does any of the others wants to add something?
I would add like one little thing, because you asked about like non-governmental funding, and we had this discussion with like a drink brand asking us if they could fund us, and we need money because we're doing it all like next to our ordinary jobs. So it's like totally voluntarily what we do. And we get money from Düsseldorf, but not that much. So the money would have been great. That's what I want to say. But we were thinking about it and we decided against it because we would have been struggling with, we also are like a activist movement in what we do, and there is a political view to our things, and if we would like integrate this drink brand to every Instagram post that we do or put it like on our flyer or whatever, that would have been shitty in that way. So I think the problem with those brand funding things is that you get a bit away from your own spirit because you have to connect to that. I don't know.
But just to add on, it's a very thin line you're walking when you're working with brands. We know about the social washing, pink washing, green washing. There are brands who are, let's say Coca-Cola, for instance, they have also a green line within, but still though it's Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola is not a good company, so to say. And but if you get offers from them, we have always tough discussions, who we're going to work with together or not. Is that still working with our code of conduct when it comes to sponsoring, to social and ecological responsibility and sustainability? But if you need the money, it's another discussion than if you can. We are in the happy position that we get public funds. We are not. We can mainly make the choice better than others who are really forced to work together with brands which are a bit, you can say it's a 50-50 thing.
But one last thing, so I think if you're a collective, you can really play with that thing. So if you have this funding from a brand and you know what you're doing, so you can use it for you as well. So not only to say, okay, now they're funding our group and we have to show them everywhere, but you can use it for your message too. So if you know or what you're doing, and if you can kind of being activist with this too, I think. So it's a second chance, but I go totally with you when it comes to, okay, we have to show that brand everywhere, and then it's definitely better to say no if it's only that. So.
You see, we could talk here forever, but others are here to follow. So thank you to the four panelists here and to you for now. And next up.
What an interesting way to get started. I just wanted to highlight, feel free to connect with the panelists afterwards. We may not have time for all questions, but please feel free, they'll be here. So any questions you have, reach out to them, connect with them after the event, and make sure you're getting the most out of their experience and insights that they've been sharing with us today. But moving on, we have two very interesting presentations. I'm really excited. These presentations will talk about the role that music can play in post-industrial cities. So how can we leverage the city heritage and industrial past and connect it with music? And I come from a post-industrial city as well, Turin in Italy, so I'm really excited about that. And our first presentation will be very dynamic. We don't only have one presenter, we'll have many, and we'll even have some live music, so you don't want to miss that. So I would like to welcome to the stage Marko Zajic from the Industrial Project. Thank you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Düsseldorf. I'm happy to be able to present to you our project today, Industrial, on behalf of the entire team. The sounds you have just heard already gave you a brief clue to what Industrial is all about. Our logo also reveals a few key points. Our connection to Düsseldorf is underlined here by the highlighted letters DUS. Those who arrived by plane will have recognized this abbreviation as the destination of Düsseldorf Airport. You will see another direct reference to the airport later. Furthermore, the music genre industrial can be found in the title. Industrial was co-founded in the United States, Great Britain, but also here in Düsseldorf. The mastermind of the then new music genre was the Düsseldorf band Die Krupps. We are therefore pleased that the co-founder and frontman of Die Krupps, Jürgen Engler, is the patron of our project. With Industrial, we see ourselves in the music tradition of the city. As for the music history of Düsseldorf, you will be offered a guided tour this evening. The two guides, Sven André Dreyer and Michael Wenzel, also know and support our project. They will explain to you the historical background, so I won't go into further detail. I wish the participants of the tour a lot of fun and many insights. And finally, Industrial also stands for industry and local companies. It is easy to explain the basic idea behind Industrial. We approach companies and ask them if musicians could record sound or collect impressions in their factories. These sounds then form the basis of compositions of new pieces of music. We don't tell the musicians how to use the data, whether it's an inspiration for the lyrics, background for the instruments, or again, as completely sampled pieces of music. They are free to be completely creative. In addition to the artist's work, creates a sound archive of Düsseldorf industry, which makes the sound of each individual station immortal. This takes on a special significance. For example, the sounds we will record at the factory of Vallourec next week will fall silent next year. Vallourec is closing the site after more than 100 years, meaning we will have preserved the sound and made it available to musicians. We are already working with 9 industrial companies and 15 musicians and bands in Düsseldorf. These come from very different music genres: hip-hop, soul, techno, punk, electronic music, almost everything hidden underneath the broad generic term rock pop is included. Industrial is not just looking back into music history, trying to repeat it. We want to pick up the thread and transfer it to today. That's why we are pleased to have musicians and bands who already shaped the local or even international music scene at the time of industrial creation, as well as promising artists who are still at the beginning of their careers. We want to bring these generations and styles together, and we want to bring music and industry together. At this point, it's worth mentioning that we are very grateful for the company's support. We didn't know how these companies would react when we asked them to open their factory gates. Therefore, we were amazed with how much fun and energy the employees supported us, how much time they invested into the recordings, and how they responded to the musicians' ideas and wishes. One more aspect should be mentioned. We see Industrial as an interdisciplinary platform. That's why there will be a musical composition, there are premieres, but also, for example, high-quality design. As a city with a long history of art, especially in photography, the visual documentation of the recording process by photographers from Düsseldorf plays an important role. And you will see Johannes Boventer over there and Thomas Stelzmann over there. Those are 2 of the 4 photographers that we're working with, and you see some of their pictures back here on the presentation. The results not only depict the work process, but also tie in with the tradition of Düsseldorf Photography School, while at the same time documenting and archiving the industry of today. In the end, everything is to result in a record. Texts and pictures about the project and the background information about Düsseldorf music history. A feast for ears and eyes, a piece of contemporary history. Now, I have presented the basic idea of industrial to you, but enough of the theory. Here comes the practice. I have the pleasure to invite Kai Hoffmann and Rolf Meyer-Bode to the stage, who will explain their working process to you and exclusively present the first interim results. Clear the stage for Rolf and Kai, and we'll see what they present for the first time to an audience worldwide.
Hello, we're Hoffmann Meyer-Bode. We're a producing and composing team from Düsseldorf. And yeah, we're here to get you through our process a bit. And we agreed that I'll do the talking and he'll do the wizardry, to call it so. The location. We were invited to a quite special place where some of you might have literally landed also recently, because we were invited to the Düsseldorf airport. Marco already mentioned it, and we also had a team with us. This is our little travel group. You can see Marco, you can see Carsten, and the team from Düsseldorf airport. And we are very thankful that a Grotesque group also joined us to support us with some additional visual stuff, but I'll come back to that later. Our musical vision, we had the idea that we wanted to produce a track. Our industrial track should be produced by only using sounds we recorded at that special day. So we brought a little gear in. We had 2 recorders, we had 4 microphones, and we had a little extra for some visuals. And now let's have a little look on our recording day. So the result were 3 hours of raw material in total. And we had many, many different sounds that ranged from luggage bell to airplane engines and all the obvious things. But we even had sounds from areas you normally don't get to go or don't get to see or to hear at all. So we then had to put it all together. These were the master files of our project, the first one, and these are the 3 hours of material. So we had to look for proper workflow to work with that. And to create our music or our original music from that recorded raw material, we mainly used 3 different techniques. The first one was selected parts of that raw material as loops. So this is one track, and you can listen to it. It sounded like that. So we then selected a part, we cut it, then we looped it. This is the part we selected, we looped it, and then we played it. And you got a rhythm. The second technique was, where I selected and edited atonal sounds. We then used as drums, for example. So here we have the recording of some percussive sounds. we liked the second the most, so we cut it again, and then we edited and filtered it a bit. It sounded like that before. After we edited it, it was a bit fatter, as you can feel. So that became our bass drum, and then you could play with it. So 4/4 floor beat, for example, or a bit more variation. And the third way were isolated and edited tonal sounds for melodic use. So yeah, that's a bit more elaborated. So this is the recording of the electromotors of the luggage belt with a contact mic. It sounds like that. So then we all cut it again. Then we had to do some pitching to get it in tune. So it became a D, as you can see. And then we were able to play it, even in terms of notes and length, and so you can use it melodically. So the status quo is, in the end, we really had tons of sounds and material, and we're right in the middle of the producing process. But exclusively for today, we came up with a little sketch that we produced, and it's quite near to our concept. It's only sounds we recorded and then edited in a way. Thanks again to Harry from Grotesque Group for some visual input. And here we go. Hope you like it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Kai and Rolf, for these first world premiere impressions of your piece of art stemming from our project Industrial. By the way, Kai is not only making music, but he's also responsible for all the visual appearance of Industrial, so this is all his work. At this point, I also would like to introduce the core team behind Industrial. Sabine Fleischer, Carsten Sievert, and me, Marco Seitsch. And the people involved in this project show the unique energy of Industrial. We all come from different areas, scenes, and backgrounds, but interesting overlaps always arise from all the circles that each individual brings to the project, where an overall picture gradually emerges. It's an open, creative process. Right now, we're talking about recordings, then about a record, photos, and video art. But it is already apparent that we are also thinking about text productions, about Industrial and the music history here in the city. We are planning to hold a small international conference next year, as the phenomenon that industry influences artists' creative process is not new, but as already mentioned in the beginning, it does have a long tradition in music. We want to find more partners in the industry. Furthermore, we also would like to expand the basic idea of Industrial. We will soon get in touch with musicians of new and contemporary music to talk about the project's second edition. We would also like to involve performing and visual artists in the process. In addition, we would like to talk with different festivals in the city to see if joint concerts could be possible. These circles go on, so hopefully a large, colorful image of our city can emerge, an image in which different areas of urban life are interwoven, an image as colorful and bright as Düsseldorf itself. But we don't want to stop at Düsseldorf or industrial sounds. We already have many ideas that go to other cities and countries, or turning completely different sounds into music. Because once you've walked through a city with an open ear and you have realized that you can turn any sound into music, you will start hearing music everywhere. Speaking of listening to music, I'd like to move on to another world premiere. Soraya was with us at Teekanne, a very well-known manufacturer of tea. The result is a song that will be performed for the first time live. She will tell us briefly before the performance what inspired her. I say clear the stage for Soraya, and maybe you tell us just briefly what inspired you when you visited Teekanne with us. Thank you.
Hello? Check. All right, so hello everyone. First of all, thank you for having me here. I'm Soraya, I'm 16 years old, and I will tell you a little bit about the song that I'm about to perform today. So I thought it was really interesting to create a song out of samples that you take from an industry and from a factory. So I took these little samples similar to the song before, and yeah, I made a song out of it. So I hope you enjoy.
Something in mind. See these people dressed up. They be desperate for fight. Start seeing those blue lights. I've seen they are wanting endless time of fright. For sure going back down. So I miss all the fights. Masked up with no strength. Real world better, no fake. Now I got your headache. Waving on you. I see changes in your ways. You will change every day. Slow down your situation. You get stuck in it. Hold you down again. Hate on misperception. All you time I ignored who you really were. You see this box around you. Holds you down all the time and you don't think outside. Just 1 second too much, it don't matter anyway. Now I might be on my way, so you can tell me this ain't me. You're so invasive in me. But before, let's find out your energy. I've seen they are boxing, and let's start my fight. For sure going back down, so I miss all the fights. Masked up with no strength, real or better, no fake. Mountain hurting headache, and I need to know who even are you. I see changes in your ways. You will change every day. Settle down your situation. You get stuck in it. Hold you down in blue. This train is making me wonder who would be fooled. Spent this time with you, 'cause I thought I could help you choose who you will be, but I didn't know that you already chose. You could
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of our presentation. I hope you got a good insight into our project, Industrial, and that we could inspire you a little bit by what is being created here. We appreciate your support on Instagram and Facebook, or drop us a line if you want to learn more about the project, or if you even would like to support us. We will be happy to see you at one of our concerts, and we are glad to take your questions, and thank you very much. So if you got questions, not only to, but also for Soraya or Wolf, Kai, if you got questions. That is a really good question, and we are already were thinking about using the experience of, for example, Kai and Rolf, to teach younger folks to learn exactly those techniques. So maybe we'll do a workshop one day. I don't know if Rolf and Kai, I hope I was speaking in your behalf, but that really is an idea that we had, because we have the great opportunity to go to very interesting places here in the city that make really interesting sounds and that you don't get easily access to. So I think maybe in the future we will cooperate with the local music scene, or even we have the Robert Schumann Hochschule for music, for example, here, a university to study music. We have the Hochschule Düsseldorf that also experiments a lot with media. And maybe there will be some synergy between all those institutions and us to bring people into practice with a project like this.
We have a question here.
Hi, my name is Hensuk. I'm not actually living in Dortmund, but very close to it, and work in Dortmund for a institution. It's called European Center for Creative Economy. And first of all, thank you very much for that presentation, which inspires me to encourage you to go further and definitely take it on a tour, because the overview of, or the slogan of this convention is about harvesting the sound of the cities. And listening to the artist from Dortmund earlier on, it's something about identity and about collecting a dying industrial area or era more. So, and there are regional or public fundings, which is explicitly given also forwarded by our institution to encourage artists in North Rhine-Westphalia especially to establish and actually go on tour and do festival work. What you are doing with Düsseldorf, you could easily spread out everywhere, and that's something that I would encourage you to proceed, and because you have the forum to highlight new artists, link it together with local history, and it's a great idea, fantastic.
Thank you very much. We need to get in touch. You were talking about funds. So that's a very good idea. Actually, that's exactly what we are thinking about. Our intention is to basically get a home base here in Düsseldorf with our networks that we got here. We're actually applying for funding through the city for 2 concerts in the next year. The aim is that all the creations, all the compositions that are produced in this project right now in the first edition will be premiered also in Düsseldorf, especially maybe in collaboration with the companies that we work with. So we might present this music actually in the factory where it was produced or recorded. But yes, that's what I already mentioned. We want to go to other places. We want to, maybe one idea would be maybe to get an exchange between, let's say, 5 musicians from the city XYZ with Düsseldorf and interchange them with the local factories and maybe do a joint venture with different sounds from different industries, different countries, or even go to other, not just rock pop or not just industry sounds. So there are already a lot of ideas, and thank you for the input, and I'll need your business card.
Any other questions? Yeah, coming with the microphone.
Hi, maybe just to follow up on that point, and also the question that was raised earlier about funding. Perhaps we're going to talk about it in the next 2 days, but there is a huge amount of funding coming from the EU right now to assist musicians, and specifically the mobility of musicians and the exchanges that you've just talked about. So that's one point. And the other one is just that in general, there's a lot of work under the Creative Europe program from Brussels to help musicians get out of the slump that was created by COVID. So if anyone has interest, I can
I
help
need your
shed the
business
light.
card too. Yeah, I've heard of a lot of those programs. I don't know how difficult it is to apply for European funding. I think it's a bit easier on the local level, but especially if we are going to an international exchange, the travel expenses, for example, expenses are much higher than on a local level, of course. So that would be a very interesting input in our project, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? No?
Well, if there are no further questions, you can approach us anytime. We will be here the whole day. And thank you for listening, for your attention. Have a nice day.
Okay, what an interesting presentation. I should get a microphone and bring it with me to airports from now on. Yeah, thank you, Soraya, for the great performance as well. What a treat to be listening to this for the first time, so thank you so much. Okay, moving on, we have another presentation about the relationship between the industrial heritage and music, and I would like to welcome to the stage Ahmed Sisman. And yeah, Ahmed, welcome to the stage.
Hello, my name is Ahmed Shishman. I'm living since 20 years in Essen, and I have a project going on called Stone Techno, which takes place at the UNESCO World Heritage Zollverein. It's an interdisciplinary project together with the Ruhrmuseum and the Foundation Zollverein. And before explaining more about it, I want to show you an after movie of the first festival, which took place this summer, like last summer in July.
I did feel the vibe of many old coal miners that have dug deep into the earth for the world to find resources for us to heat our homes, breathing through celebrating everything good in the world.
The place is insane. There's loads of like little hidden corners as well, which I like.
There's no other place like it in the world because
It's like a national heritage site, right?
And the whole place just breathes techno, I think, in this place with the industrial vibe. Thank you for the invite.
So I drove them, they're my guys.
And now the kids just want to rave.
I had a good expectation, but when I arrived, this industrial kind of area totally made sense with the Stone Techno project, the music that comes behind the name.
There were so many sounds to choose from. I mean, I could have made 10 tracks out of it.
I enjoyed a lot of the Stone sounds and those kind of belly metallic hits. I used as like a top line.
A lot of nice percussive and almost like industrial percussive noise.
They actually were very useful. Normally when you get a sample back, it's maybe 10% of it is great, the rest is not so great, but actually I was very inspired.
I was able to fit it in really well.
I played the track, it smashed it, yes.
I mean, this place is unique in the world. Yeah, I've never seen something like this.
It was my debut and it was incredible. The venue alone is beyond. It's so many hidden corners, so many different floors.
The energy was so crazy from the beginning till the end. I would love to have that again.
Yes, of course, I would love to come back. How not?
I felt very responsible and also energized. This is the best and the most beautiful location I've seen in my life. And not even like as a DJ, like as a person.
We had a fucking party.
Location is absolutely amazing.
Location is really special.
And I think that's so awesome because this is the right place for techno.
The crowd was giving me so much energy, so I had an absolutely great time.
An amazing thing I've never experienced before, playing outdoors but yet feeling like we were together in a club.
It's cool when I was young, you hear about Ruhrgebiet, but I never saw it up close like this. It's really impressive.
First time I played in a World Heritage site, so that's one to tick off. The energy of the people is really nice. I think also where Essen is positioned in Europe, then they get a lot of people from the surrounding areas, which I think is really cool.
Well, as you see, there's a lot of input from the after movie. I tried to narrow down maybe the core idea of Stone Techno and how we ended up to do a festival. The heart of the project is a sample library. The sample library is closely connected to the place. Like, I don't know if you know it, Zollverein is UNESCO World Heritage and was the biggest coal mine of Europe, and it's like really big. I did a cooperation with Dr. Achim Reisdorf. He's a geologist, and we took the archive of the Ruhr Museum, the minerals, and we sampled them, and we arranged an artist for that. The last sample library was made by Matthew Herbert. Like Matthew Herbert is the sampling king himself. I think people who are interested in the topic of sampling, like it's an art form that Matthew Herbert is maybe the #1 artist to do it. They just came last year in documentary art just about him, about the topic sampling sounds. We did sample those sounds, especially for minerals. Therefore, the project is called Stone Techno, like coal or everything that was gathered from the ground of Zollverein in the Ruhr area, and we did create a sample library. My main task was not only to create the artists, but also creating the whole brand. So what did I do? I contacted a lot of international known artists. I asked them if they want to be a part of this challenge. And the challenge is to create exclusively with this sample library, which is made out of inorganic material, futuristic music, like electronic music. There was not really kind of a genre thing, even though the project is called Stone Techno. I'm associating techno more with the term technology. And in this case, we have created or composed. Myself as an artist, I also composed 2 tracks. In total, we had 32 tracks composed and created by different artists. As you see at the video, the most artists who have talked and give kind of some feedback of the festival have also contributed a track to the series. We released 4 EPs last year, also on vinyl. They were sold out, and this year also a bigger compilation. So this is the heart of the project, the sample library. And as far as I know, it's a worldwide unique concept, creating out of inorganic material electronic music. Of course, you can nowadays with the technologies of DAWs, like digital audio works stations, you can change the music, of course, the samples the way you like. But all in all, even Matthew, as the creator of the sample library, and also the artists, most of them stayed really true to the essence of the sample library, which is kind of a raw, has this industrial vibe, like the artist said. And this is something where I was able to generate really a lot of well-known artists, and that was the core of it. Having a cooperation with the Ruhr Museum is also something unique, at least for myself, or I don't know really a lot of, let's say, raves where a museum is involved. And when we come to the topic funding, that's actually here also an interesting one. And I do agree to Ralph from CO Pop. It's what you make out of it. I contacted a lot of people from the Cultural Ministerium, and then you're getting the right person. You're trying to convince him, and then you get this kind of funding. It sounds strange, but the fundings actually don't go through a jury or formal paper. You have to get bilateral dialogue in people who are in charge. And then they say, okay, this is something we can talk about or not. And of course, having a cooperation with the Ruhr Museum was a game changer. But all in all, what I want to say is, I'm doing events at this venue since 2015. And this was the first ever on the bigger scale festival I did. And we really attracted 55% tourists from outside. And partially, of course, mainly from Netherlands. But it was really interesting to see people coming from South Korea, Canada, Australia, Sweden, and also a lot of people from South Europe. And this is a big tourist factor. We have also talked about this with the city of Essen, and they're aware of this. The city is broke, so they don't have really that much money. But in the end, the aim of this project is maybe to get at the beginning some cultural funding, but on the long term to stay on its own, because we are in the pop culture. It has to work on a commercial side. This was also kind of a big struggle, is not the right word maybe, but a big compromise even with the artistic approach of this concept. You have to find the right balance between authenticity, but also commercial value, and this is something that I have tried to achieve with the Stone Techno project. All the music you have listened in the video is actually a part of the Stone Techno series. And now we started, as you see at the end of the video, that We already have a second date for the next year. We just started with selling blind tickets. Means people don't know what they're expecting, but they're going really well, and it's already sold out. And I see already that the percentage of people who are coming outside of Germany is getting higher and higher. So this is kind of a very unique concept in a very strong location. And if you tell the story right and promote it the right way, this could be something like a lighthouse project, not just for Essen, also for the Ruhr area and maybe North Rhine-Westphalia. This is, in my point of view, something big you can achieve and get one of maybe the best festivals in Germany if you establish it. And all in all, maybe that's also something you need to know, that the Third Room is actually a label, event series, and a studio. I'm also a mastering engineer. I did master all the tracks from the series. So these three disciplines go hand in hand with the Stone Techno project. And I think one of the big factors also that it became such popular was not only like social media, like Instagram. We had at the beginning of the year 5,000 followers. Now we have 30,000. That's a big, that's a big jump. But we also had a cooperation with Arte Concert, and on YouTube, all the people are really fascinated about the concept, and I think that's something you can inspire artists with that. You can inspire people to say, hey, listen, we have something here in Essen that's unique, and we can try to be a part of it, because in its core, the Third Room is a collective. Even if I am like the founder of it, I want to have a collective, and this is kind of a festival where you can we can also integrate the local scene. But with local scene, I mean not just only Essen, like it could be Ruhr area, North Rhine-Westphalia, and that's what I'm talking more about, local scene. And in the end, it took a lot of time and effort. You maybe have to realize that Zollverein is a foundation, and it has two, how you call it, not CEOs, but people who are like sitting on the top of the foundation. They're over 60. Trying to explain them in its core, I want to do a rave and the UNESCO World Heritage was not really easy. So you need kind of a lot of patience. You need to be consistent, and sometimes you have to be also a bit more aggressive is the wrong word, but you have to really force your luck to do something like this. Yeah. I think maybe it's more easier to explain more on the project if you have questions about it. No, sorry. I made a contract with Matthew Herbert just for 16 tracks, and it's exclusive just for the artists. We are thinking about it, but then we're gonna sell it on Bandcamp. But yes, the sample library is pretty amazing, but it's not for free. The first one was for free. You can find it if you like in the internet, or maybe, because we did also a challenge for newcomers who want to be a part of this, and actually a producer from Paris, an Italian producer, won the challenge, the first one. But the second sample library is unfortunately not for free.
I think you just answered my question, which was about making the samples available for up-and-coming artists in order to enable new artists to be showcased at the event. But is that I heard? But
I'm thinking about it. I just have to speak with Matthew or his management again, because apparently an artist such on a big scale, you're doing some agreements, but of course I think he might be open for this. But all in all, the thing is, keeping it kind of exclusive and doing a curation about it makes it also special, because people are really looking forward to get this vinyl box with 4 different EPs. All the vinyls, we have 5 vinyls. They are also named after a system of minerals. You know, even the artwork is digitally recreated. When you check our Bandcamp page, then you see on the cover all those minerals are digitally created. They look really organic, and so that's the main core to not, how you call it. Sometimes opening a project to everyone makes it then less authentic, and that's something I need to be aware of.
On the other side of that, the concept is wonderful, by the way. I think it looks amazing. But on the other hand, a lot of the time when you approach funders, they want to see some kind of legacy or afterlife or sustainability for the project. And that might be one way of ensuring that the project lasts, or you get newcomers getting involved in some kind of wider scale in your subsequent years, potentially.
Definitely. The thing is, Stone Techno is really a sub-brand of the Third Room. So everything that's get more popular through Stone Techno means also the brand is getting more popular. And this could be a platform then, and I will do this. I'm planning a new compilation with a combination of internationally really known artists and up-and-coming artists from the region. So you combine this, and this is also good promotion for them. So if this brand is getting bigger and bigger, you can involve more people from the local scene. Maybe a good example of this could be the Dekmantel Festival, which is focusing a lot of Dutch artists, but at the beginning they had to, let's say, buy their reputation from outside. So this could be a kind of an interesting concept, or I can be like inspired by this concept to do about the same thing.
Cooperation with a cultural heritage, and also the museums, the Room Museum and also the Ruhr Triennale, which you also...
Ruhr Triennale was different.
Yeah,
different
but it's all
concept.
like cultural institutions you are cooperating with. That's a pretty new and maybe not that common thing, I think, especially for the techno scene, but maybe also for the music scene in general, or the pop music scene. Do you think that potential is especially high in the Ruhr area? Or did you already think about kind of expanding your project, your ideas to other parts of North Rhine-Westphalia or even Germany?
First of all, I did a cooperation with the Ruhr Triennale also from 2015 to 2017, and now again another one. The thing is, those culturally funded high culture institutions, I think they realized that the pandemic hit them even harder than the pop industry, because they've lost their target audience. A lot of people over 50, they don't go out anymore. So they're kind of forced to open up. Even if they don't like I can say this, the director of the Ruhr Museum hates the concept. But, but I have convinced him, now maybe he loves it after the festival, but the thing is, he knows that he has to open up. We did an Arte concert stream 2021, just in this new Zentrale Schaudepot, where it was without audience, and we gained more clicks and views than the streams of Berghain or Tresor. So it's obvious that it has something special. And those cultural institutions, they need the younger target audience. And this is also kind of, we made this application for funding, there was a word, this audience is your audience of the future, maybe in 10 or 20 years. They will go to the museum then. About opening up the concept. Yes, sure, we are already planning some collaborations with promoters in Amsterdam, in Berlin. There was an approach from Liverpool last year, but I didn't really force it or follow it. But Liverpool has also kind of a like industrial background. And some UNESCO World Heritage, I'm not really sure about it. This could be a collaboration thing also. And yes, Ruhr Triennale is also a topic again. We did that as a part with the Respublika team, and that fit really well. It was actually the only really last sold out show of the Ruhr Triennale, which shows that the theater in itself is kind of in a crisis. And I do believe that combining it with pop culture is a perfect combination. And there are a lot of examples, like Berlin, maybe it's not the same, but Altona Festival is something you can take as inspiration, and I wish you can do something like this also at Zollverein.
Hi, First of all, thank you for this presentation. It's really like inspiring to see like the level of sophistication that you put into like the different kinds of media. That's like, for example, this video that you just showed to us, and also like the sample pack and the artwork that you just described. I was wondering, do you see, or how much potential do you see for different electronic music genres to be represented, like at your events or like the Zollverein location, for example, like lower tempo, or like, yeah, there's like different music genres based on electronic music than just techno, and I feel they are a little bit underrepresented. What's your take on that?
They're actually not underrepresented when you listen to the releases in music. They're just underrepresented in the after movie because this is kind of a promotional movie to attract the younger generation for the festival. So this is really kind of a commercial with a kind of bit of documentary background, kind of a after movie. But this is really made on purpose. But if you listen to the music, I didn't set any genre limitations. Of course, it has to be kind of electronic music, but not dance music. We have a lot of ambient music there. I don't know, outplays of artifacts. They're like kind of a really good known ambient duo. F. Demin also, he produced kind of this more weird stuff. There is a kind of this kind of music involved. But all in all, there's also another hard fact. The vinyls, they are not funded by any cultural funding. So if you want to sell records, you need to have kind of a dance music. And this project is still much experimental than other projects. I have really big artists involved, but the vinyl is not really, it's not profitable. It's a non-commercial thing. But the project is special. So this is more kind of, most tracks are not really tracks you play in clubs. They're more like collector's item and listening at home. So it is actually involved. Your question, when I related to the festival, this is something I would like to do, to integrate an ambient floor where people can chill and have a different kind of musical experience. This is something I'm thinking about.
Interesting. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. That was very, very interesting. I'm glad we got so many questions. And again, feel free to connect with the speakers after. We have a break now. We're running a bit late, so we'll try to keep it short. But after that, be prepared because we have a workshop. So we'll put your minds to it, and you'll get to think and brainstorm and get to know other people. So feel free to grab a drink, and we'll meet you here in about 10, 15 minutes. Thank you. group discussion where you'll be able to analyze different questions and come up with ideas and share them with the other participants and put them on a sheet. At the end of it, we will call a few groups and we will get to hear their thoughts, their findings, and all the interesting ideas they came up with. We won't have sound in the other room, so we won't have any microphones, but I'll be going around making sure you're all set with the discussion. And yeah, so whenever you're ready, feel free to move to the other room. It's just at the back of the stage, and take a seat. If you can, sit with someone you don't know, someone you've never spoken to, and yeah, enjoy the session. Thank you. I'll meet you back there. So this is it. Final presentation of the day. Seth Jackson from London, the UK. He's the CEO and founder of Landmark Limited. And he's going to tell us all about Everything is Music. So, Seth, thank you. Please join me on stage.
Hi. Thanks for waiting till the end of the day. Appreciate it. So it is really nice to be at a conference with loads of passionate people that are not just passionate about music, but passionate about music and placemaking. Because I spent the last decade working in location and music, and I guess I've come to the right place today. So I run a company called Landmark. Landmark is what people often call Pokemon Go for music. So it's a software platform. We work with all of the major record labels in the world, we do Ariana Grande and we do Shakira. So these big pop acts, all based around location, individual locations, and unlocking content and fan engagement. But today I'm here to talk about a project. It's not a project, it's a product. A product that we have with our friends from Crack Magazine, which you might be familiar with. A very successful music publication across Europe. And this is Everything is Music. Everything is Music is, I guess you could call it a digital city music trail, but really it's a canvas. It's a canvas that allows the owners of the city, the people that are invested in the city, to create a musical journey through those cities. Now, I put a kind of caveat in here, which is, I think Zuckerberg's version of the metaverse is bollocks. But what I don't think is bollocks is the kind of meshing of the physical and the digital. The idea that you can create an immersive layer within physical places and create a rich media environment within that. So I guess Everything is Music is, and I am an advocate of a kind of non-bollocks, real-world metaverse, and that, I hope, is kind of what we're building the gateway to, if you like, the kind of stepping stones. So, as I said, so Everything is Music is a location-based trail. It's really about showing the kind of rich musical heritage of a city, but it's about the past, it's about the present, and it's about the future musical journeys of those cities. And we use lots of different techniques around that. So some of them, like you see here, is bringing kind of physical posters to life and creating sexy pieces of augmented reality. Some of it is just about human stories. It's about understanding, every place you go to has a million stories. And how do you uncover those stories? And really it's about a mix of brilliant technology and brilliant curation. And if you can bring those things together, you can create something really quite special. So the first kind of tenet of this concept was that you want it to be inclusive. You want it to be easy to use for both visitors to the city and residents of the city. So a key part of that is don't build an app. Don't make people download stuff. Don't put barriers to entry. So we built Everything is Music from the very beginning on mobile web. So you scan a QR code or you click on a link and you're straight into the experience. Then it's about really thinking about what the places mean and what the content is around them. So here you can see, although you can't hear, a poet on the site of Colston statue. So Colston was a horrible slaver. His statue got torn down in Bristol, which was the beginning of a kind of revolution across, I would say, much of the world. This is the spot where it was, and this is an original piece that was composed around it. And you can see here a 2D hologram that is in place in augmented reality of a performance around that. So that's really linking place and unique content together in a really powerful way. We also worked on, we mapped the whole of Bristol, so 250 different pins around the city, and not just in the centre, not just in the places where the tourist goes. If you wanted to go on the Massive Attack tour of Bristol, you could just select that and it would take you out to Knoll West, not a place that many people go to in Bristol, but it would allow people to actually explore the city. And it also allows you to control your tourists a bit more. It allows you to actually maybe even look at real-time data and traffic data and all those things and use it to highlight interesting places for them to go. So each time you would have a different piece of content. So for Idols, you had unlocked music that had never been heard before. It was released just in that spot. We started experimenting with, okay, not every city has, not every single hotspot will have all this content straight away. So how can you start to create things which are visually stimulating but work with an artist's music, for instance? So in this case, we've got 4D visualizations which are sound responsive and work with any piece of music. So the artist will place the music, but the consumer has, I guess, something visually to see and to go wow at in AR. So we started in Bristol and Bath, and that went pretty well. We had, sorry, I've got content going. 20,000 people using it during the pilot period, so really, really great. And what was really interesting was how long people spent there, how many hotspots they went to, like the dwell time. It was really deeply engaged. And, there's loads of spin-off economy around this. We're looking at producing a book, an augmented reality book that has all those hotspots, like a map of the whole city that you can explore from your coffee table. We're excited about doing it in Bristol and Bath. We then took it out to Brighton in 2022 and started experimenting a bit more with, different content. So in the previous one, we'd had 2D holograms, we'd had visualizations. In this case, we suddenly moved to 3D holograms, so volumetric capture of performances. So you could have musicians busking on every street corner, for instance. It's going to work. Maybe it's not. Anyway, you have to take my word for it. There's a 3D hologram up there. I think you're probably going to end up with more 4D visualization. You are. They love those ones. And it's not just that we're picking cities that start with B, by the way. It's just that we happen to be working our way through the UK. And really, these were prototypes. These were experimenting with what could be done, trying to look at audience behavior before we were... Oh, look, there you go. There's my 3D hologram. And what was really interesting is just quite how engaged people were. How once they saw one they would say, yeah, digital tours, I've seen that. But once they went to one place, then they were really keen to seek out the next and the next and the next after that. And then once we'd done those two pilots, just a few weeks ago, we went to Amsterdam Dance Event. Weeks ago? I don't know, a month ago. Went to Amsterdam Dance Event. And this was really, really exciting because what we managed to do, we worked with ADE to produce an official kind of tour across the city with a bunch of hotspots, but we invited lots of different artists to curate those hotspots and tell their stories about Amsterdam and what the locations meant to them, and to tell that in whatever way they saw fit. So some people chose to do a musical walking tour where you would walk around the city with a lovely artist in your ears, just as a pure audio experience, just saying, yeah, and up here this meant this to me, and this is the first club I played at, and telling all those lovely stories. And we managed to get all of these different artists, some Dutch, some international artists, to select different things they wanted to do. And then we started to play with this idea that I mentioned earlier, the idea that you can have a kind of a canvas for these artists, and then they can then overlay on top of it. So, and some big artists like Noel Rodgers. So yeah, that was a good example. ADE had some footage that they hadn't used for anything else. It was just sitting in the archive. How can you bring this stuff actually out there? If you've got a rich musical history and loads of stuff sitting in your archives, how can you make it an interactive? And these are one of the ways of doing it. See, look, they love the blobs. But what was interesting about these blobs is each artist would design their own skin. So they were given an interface, they could design their own skin, they could put their own music over it, and they could control what they looked like and how they interacted with the public. So you can see different artists use different kind of ways of doing it. And then that developed into this idea, which is, okay, maybe you've got lots of 2D content that, yes, you could just deliver on the phone, but isn't this an interesting way, suddenly, if you provide a 3D screen, if you like, in augmented reality for them, suddenly you can take footage which is, you know, traditional footage, but it's suddenly much, much more exciting. And these kind of idea of kind of living screens got amazing reactions. Does that still count as a blob? I love that one. It looks like a kind of crazy, fucked up fish, doesn't it? So that was our first kind of example of really working with a large ADE just owns the city during that period, and working with a really organised organisation with strong social media. And the pickup was immense in terms of the social posts, in terms of people sharing, in terms of people getting really excited about it. We're talking now to Amsterdam about doing it across the city as a kind of permanent installation. And I think that is definitely one of the things here. So you can do these things as a kind of pop-up around a festival. So you go to Austin and do it around South by Southwest, or do it around Sound City. But the idea is that really these kind of digital journeys can provide a kind of permanence to your musical story and a permanence to your musical history. So a walking tour is great with a guide, but it's kind of wonderful if the city just is, if these places just exist, if they're living kind of moments in that. And I guess that's what we're trying to do with Everything Is Music. We're trying to create a canvas for those people that perhaps want to curate journeys across their city, but also just curate the city itself, to kind of bring the heart of the city, the musical heart of the city, out as a kind of living, immersive experience. A not shit metaverse is the idea. So if anyone would like to have a chat about how you might do that for your cities afterwards, do let me know. That's me done.
Questions? Great.
Okay, this looks amazing, and it's exactly something that I'm involved in right now, developing a music heritage trail for Croydon. But there's one big question you've got to ask about this: data collection, and is it being monetized? The collection of the user data as they're walking around the trails. How does that work?
What, from our perspective, or what? Or
is there an angle? Because this will be the first question I'll be asked.
From our perspective, there's no angle. This is just a platform that you can use to build your world. The data is owned by the client, which in this case would be you guys. Wonderful. Data is controlled. If there's payable, we have paywalls built in as an option that you can put in if you want. I tend to not be a huge fan of paid experiences in that way. I think there's probably other ways to monetize. I think a music tourist is worth quite a lot of money if you can get them to drink in the coffee shop and go to the places. But that's really about the host.
Okay. And how is it possible to add to the trails? And could this be made open access with some form of moderation? So, for example, my local residents could add in their own musical memories about special places in the city, for example.
So in Bristol, we had, you could select your own hotspot, you could locate it, and you could upload either a kind of pitch, if you like, and then our researchers would come and do something more full, or you could upload just a story or a memory. It has to be moderated. Course, it really does. Should see some stuff that goes up. But it was amazing. I saw the house. I used to live in the hands of some music journalist. It needs to be the city's own stories. And it needs to be future stories as well. It needs to be emerging artists. It needs to be the next generation of artists having access and visibility on the platform.
And final question, what does it broadly cost to maintain, or is it some kind of subscription model, or is there a fixed rate for like a fixed term, such as a year or 6 months, or the length of your project?
There's a software subscription, it's a SaaS model, so yes, right. Very happy to discuss with you.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll chat to you later.
Any other questions? No?
No, you all want to go for a beer now.
Yeah. Thank you, Seth.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Seth, and everyone for sticking around. This is the end of day one as far as talks and presentations are concerned, but we have 2 fun activities that you get to join now. It's either a secret concert or a tour of the city of Düsseldorf from a music perspective. It's called The Sound of Düsseldorf. So based on the activity we've chosen, you have 2 meeting locations, and we'll meet at 6:30. And you're able to scan the QR codes to open Google Maps and get directions for the meeting points. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you again to our partners for bringing us here, and we're looking forward to tomorrow for another full day of talks and interesting and helpful insights. Thank you all so much.